right, so the first portion of the ethers and epoxides chapter is understanding the nomenclature of ethers. So before talking about the nomenclature of ethers, first let me introduce to you what an ether actually is. So an ether is any molecule that has an oxygen that is bound to two R groups, and it looks like this. You have an oxygen and it's bound to two R groups like you do here. This is considered an ether. So now we can talk about the two naming systems when it comes to naming ethers. And there's two ways. One is the common system for naming ethers, and the second is called the systematic. So first is the common naming system, and the second is the systematic naming system. So we're going to talk about both of these and explain how to name ethers for both of these systems. So the common naming system functions by first identifying both R groups as substituents, then arranging them in alphabetical order, and then adding the word ether at the end of it. So let's go through an example. If I have a molecule that looks like this, and I want to name it using the common naming schematic, I'm going to first identify both of these R groups as substituents. On the left, we have an ethyl, and it ends in YL because it is a substituent. On the right, we have a methyl, and it ends in YL for the same reason. So now let's arrange them systematically. So you have an E here and an M here. So we're going to arrange it ethyl, methyl, and then we always add the word ether at the end of it in the common naming schematic. And this is how you name ethers using the common naming system. So let's try one more example here. If I have a compound that looks like this, and I want to name it using the common naming system, I'm going to first identify all of the R groups as substituents. So on the right, I have again a methyl. And on the left, I have a tert butyl. And so how do we arrange these alphabetically? Well, B comes before M in the alphabet. Do not use this as part of your alphabetical naming system when using this, because tert is not used when we're considering substituents and arranging them in alphabetical order. You want to use what's in front of the tert. So if it's tert butyl, you're going to stick with B. So here, to arrange these in alphabetical order, it'll look like this: tert dash butyl, methyl, and then always add ether at the end of it. And this is your answer for this compound. If we're naming a ether that is symmetric, then it becomes even easier. So now here are my two R groups, and these are both ethyls. And so all you would do is simply add a di in front of both of these, a diethyl, and then put ether, and that's how you name a symmetrical ether. So now we can move on to the systematic naming system. When naming compounds using the systematic naming scheme, what we have to do is identify a parent chain as one of the R groups, and then we name the rest of the compound as an alkoxy substituent. So what do I mean by that? If I have an ether that looks like this, and we'll say that this is the parent chain for reasons that I will explain shortly, then this becomes the alkoxy substituent. And our naming is going to change based on that. So basically what you do is you add oxy at the end of whatever your alkoxy substituent is, and you name the parent chain as you normally would. So it's much easier to understand using an example. So if I have this compound here, first we have to identify the parent chain in the systematic naming scheme. So this would be our parent chain here, and this would be pentane, which means that this is our substituent. So to name this substituent, we first identify the number of carbons that it has. Here it has 2. And so since it has this oxygen, meaning it's an alkoxy substituent, we are going to name it Eth for the 2 carbons, and then oxy, as I mentioned prior. You end the alkoxy substituent's name with oxy. So the name here is ethoxy pentane, and that's how you name this compound using the systematic naming system. So next I'll put an example on the screen, and you can pause the video once I'm done putting the example on the screen, and you can try it for yourself. Go ahead and pause the video here and try to name this compound. So I've put the compound on the screen here twice so that we can name it both via the common system and the systematic system. So to name it using the common naming system, we are going to name each substituent separately and end it with a YL, arrange them in alphabetical order, and then add the word ether to the end. So if you did that, what you should have gotten is a phenyl here and a methyl here. And to put this in alphabetical order and name it, it would be methyl phenyl ether. To name this compound using the systematic naming system, we have to first identify the parent chain. In this case, the parent chain is this benzene ring right here. And so we're going to name it as benzene as such. And then we name the alkoxy substituent to the left. Here it is a methoxy substituent. And so we're going to name this methoxy benzene. And this is how you name ethers.